Wow, wow. Robo taxis are here. Everybody's super excited, right? I think the Bears are pretty excited as well. I mean, robo taxis are here. Waymo is actually having paid rides, right? So Tesla's definitely not leading. They're going to come from from behind to see if they can even catch up to Waymo, which is going to take quite a few years. But I'm glad everybody's excited for 10 cars in Austin in a geofenced area. So really low bar here, but don't expect anything
You
anything
think
less.
it's actually going to take them years to catch Waymo?
They're behind. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen next year. So
Magic,
that's
what?
years.
How many days do you think it?
By the end of the year, they will dwarf Waymo. Just going to let you know that.
Magic, how many days do you think it'll take for them to go from 10 cars to 20 cars?
I mean, that's. Uh, let's first talk about Austin, right? Is there going to be somebody in the passenger seat or no?
No. Oh,
Well,
So
sorry.
it's
I
unless
going to
mean,
it's
be
the
driver's seat is what I
passenger.
assumed.
the passenger seat, not the driver's seat.
There's not
Have
going to
you
be
guys?
anybody in the car. So you call the car, it comes to you, it's empty.
Okay, so 10 cars being supervised in a geofenced area. This is what the party's about.
Well, they're not being supervised, they're unsupervised.
I think Magic needs to learn the structure of a Tesla first. I get the feeling he
So,
doesn't really know it.
I mean, I think one valid point he made is yeah, it's true. Waymo has driverless cars. They've been operating driverlessly now for 5 years. So they've got about 100 cars in Austin. Tesla's starting with 10. It will be interesting to see how long it takes them to overtake Waymo if they can overtake Waymo. But yeah, if you listen to Elon, they plan to expand very rapidly. But of course, we'll have to see how the system actually performs before we know how rapidly they're going to expand.
Omar,
We also know that in the limited area that Waymo's operating, robotaxis have been far more efficient than regular cars because those 100-ish cars are servicing 20% of Uber's traffic in that area. Granted, it's not all of Austin, it's a smaller area, but that is still extremely, extremely efficient. And the co-CEOs were talking about it recently, where I forget which one it was, but one of them talked about how the number of cars that are displaced by robotaxis is actually much higher than they even anticipated.
Omar, I interviewed Nokia's CEO the day that Steve Jobs announced the iPhone, and he told me almost word for word what we just heard. There's no way Apple can make a good phone. They don't have anybody on their team who's ever made a phone before, which was true. Steve Jobs forbid his employees from hiring anybody who's worked on a phone before. And I have stores in Vietnam, he told me. I have stores in Africa. I have stores all over the world. I have almost 100% market share. Apple's not going to be able to touch that.
Yeah, and the iPhone wasn't my first smartphone. I had a BlackBerry. I had a Palm Trio running Windows Mobile. I thought it
Yeah.
was so cool that it could do active sync email push. I was like, hell yeah, I can read emails on my phone. This is so cool. I was like a little kid, you know. And is the BlackBerry any less cool now that we all use iPhones? No. I mean, they were still a pioneer of the smartphones. They put a product out in 1999, 8 years before the iPhone existed. Waymo's been doing driverless for 5 years before Tesla put their driverless car on the road. Those companies were pioneers, Palm and BlackBerry and others. But people said, well, you can't have a smartphone without a keyboard. People need these little chiclet keyboards to write email. It's not a good email device without it. And guess what? It turned out it's not that the keyboard was bad. The keyboard was actually good. But it turns out that having a big full screen device was actually much better because of all the other things you could do with the screen when you're not needing to use the keyboard. So that's the design that ultimately won out. And you just look at the Waymo, you look at all the things sort of spinning around. Um, you'd ride in Tesla FSD. It's smoother. It's more human-like. And I think the better product will win out. It'll be up to consumers to decide what the better product is. They'll judge the driving feel, they'll judge the cost, they'll judge the wait time, they'll judge other features of the car. But the market ultimately doesn't care who's first. Otherwise, we'd all be driving Chevy Bolts. You know, they beat the Model 3 to the market, right? The market cares who's the best. And I think Tesla's going to have the best service out there. And you'll be able to see it in Austin when you just compare Waymo and Tesla head to head.
When Elon gave me the first ride and we were racing Jason Calacanis in his Corvette, I was live streaming that on a Nokia phone. But getting into a Tesla is going to be a big deal right from the start. You know, this Saturday is going to be 100 degrees here in Silicon Valley. The handles on the Waymo are going to be hot. You want to open a door by yourself? Uh, the Tesla is going to open the door for you. So right from the start of your experience of getting in Tesla, it's better. And I'm looking forward to your video, Omar, showing me what that experience is like. Because once you sit down in the car, it doesn't have a steering wheel. Therefore, if a drunk hits you at 80 miles an hour, you're more likely to survive in a Tesla because it doesn't have a steering wheel to press into your chest with an airbag. It has a lot better surface for an airbag to open up and save your life. Inside the Tesla is a better sound system than the Waymo has. Even the Zeekr machine, I went to Consumer Electronics Show to check it out, right? The experience of being in a Tesla is going to be better than sitting in a Waymo. And we all know that Tesla can underprice eventually the Waymo because the customers paid for the R&D.
Yeah, the robotaxi wars are on for sure. And I'm super excited for the Cybercab. Obviously, they are starting with Model Ys at first. So it's going to be the same Model Y you can go buy at the store yourself. Um, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have Cybercabs enter the service before even the end of the year. Definitely next year, I think they will have Cybercabs in Austin. So, yeah, very exciting. Overly?
I was just gonna say, the biggest argument, and I guess it's a valid argument that the Bears have had for many years as well. If it can be unsupervised, prove it. And now we see that they're actually going to do it, and yet the goalpost has already moved. So it's like, where does the goalpost end when they scale to a different country? Like what? Like I guess what I'm gonna ask Magic is like what for so many years the argument has been, well, it can't be unsupervised. Well, now it can. So what I'm trying to understand, like, what is the argument now? That they're only gonna have 10 cars? Because we know that's not gonna last very long. They're going to scale this relatively quickly. So I'm just trying to understand, what is the argument?
Yeah, I mean the argument is that it's 10 cars and you're behind Waymo. That's it. Waymo has better tech. Waymo has lidar. Nobody cares how the car looks. Nobody cares. Nobody's like, hey, I want to fly in the plane that looks cooler, that's less safe. Nobody does that. Okay, nobody. We care about safety, and whatever's safer and whatever's easier to do, it's already Waymo's already integrated with Uber. What app is Tesla going to be on? It's Tesla's just way behind.
Tesla's already created an app, just so you know, and millions of people have it, by the way.
Okay, so they can already you can already hail a robo taxi right now on the app right now. Is that what you're saying?
Well, based on what we know from the people who actually decode the app, yes, the code is in the app. Magic. So yes.
Yeah, I think Bears should really keep making their favorite argument every day. Tesla has zero robo taxis on the road. If I were a bear, I would wake up every day and open my window and scream it out the window for everyone to hear for the next 2 weeks when it's still going to be true. Because after that, I mean, you're going to have to come up with a new argument. Well, I guess then it's Tesla
Curious.
only has 10 robo taxis on the road.
I was going to say, I'm still curious, Magic. How long do you think, in terms of days, between doubling the number of vehicles on the road?
Nobody knows because the information's not there. We don't know. It's all kept in the dark. Nobody knew what day the damn thing was until today, right? Some people thought it was June 1st. Some people thought it was June 30th. I mean, this thing is run like a joke. Right? This is not a public. It's just not how a public company should be running, quote unquote, events where nobody knows what day it is, right? I mean, it's a complete joke. So
But
I
if you
mean,
don't,
It's a complete joke. I went and stood in line in Danville, California in 2018 to buy a Tesla, and it hadn't even been announced yet. We didn't know what it looked like. We didn't know when it would ship. But yet there was 1,000 people standing in line, willing to turn over a few $100s to reserve one because we knew Elon is coming. And I know Elon's coming, and all your arguments are bullshit.
But like, if you're gonna say it's gonna be like a few years out,
Mhm.
that suggests that you have a timeline in mind, right? So I'm asking about your timeline.
Who knows on a product that doesn't exist? Nobody knows. We don't know. We need to figure out how it operates. Nobody knows. Nobody knows the cost. Nobody knows the cost of insurance. Nobody knows what app. Nobody knows what the rollout's going to be. None of this
Right.
is available.
Right. So what do
So
you
then you
care?
don't know
What's
that
your
it's gonna
point?
take longer to overtake Waymo, right? You're just saying you don't know how long it'll take. It could be a week. It could be a month. You have no clue as to how long
No,
it
no,
takes for Tesla to have more
nobody
vehicles
knows
on the road
because
than
the
Waymo.
product doesn't exist. Nobody knows because the product doesn't exist. That's why it doesn't exist. We
Okay,
don't have a
bye. Come
stance.
talk to us when it exists.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
if it
Omar, we rode
exists,
in one in October. What? It doesn't exist. What were we riding in the Warner Brothers back lot?
if it doesn't exist, then I think my car's haunted
It
because
doesn't
someone's
exist.
been
It
driving
doesn't
me
exist for
around.
current customers. It's not out to the public. That's what I'm referring to. It is not a viable product. Okay, it's a cool science trick. It's a cool science trick for people that don't understand safety and don't understand what the market wants. It's a bunch of nerds that don't understand anything, that have a lot of money in the stock that need this to work. Even though not having lidar is extremely dangerous. No matter how many people get killed, no matter what, how many people you endanger on the road,
Now,
I
as
don't
long
now,
as your
okay.
see,
stock price goes
hold
up, that's what
hold
you care
on a
about.
second, because I actually did the consumer research in 50 states to do for the auto industry, understanding attitudes towards autonomous cars. I also talked to Sebastian Thrun about the way lidar. He started the Waymo company, and he chose lidar because back then, 13, 14 years ago, there wasn't enough compute to convert 2D images or 2D cameras into 3D scenes. Well, my car's driving me around just fine with cameras now. And Sebastian Thrun said if he chose it today, he would go with camera only. And I talked to the Ford CTO, who's a smarter dude than you are, and he says he would too if he had to do it today. He would go with camera only approach. My car's doing pretty good. I'm still here after driving 136,000 miles in my Tesla, and most of that on FSD, even if you include all the shitty years, because it could barely drive in a straight line in the early days.
Yeah, I
Omar,
think the
Yeah, who
can
did
you
you?
tell us
Uh,
how many you said you claimed FSD was killing people? Can you please tell us the number? Give us a number of how many people have died using FSD since you seem to know.
look. The problem is that the safety is
No,
great.
I
Great,
asked for a
like
number. Just give us a number of how many people you claim have died using FSD.
more than
Get
zero.
him, Ali.
More than zero.
Bullshit.
Let's not
No,
get
that's not
into,
true.
let's not get
There
into
have
like
been people killed
bickering
by
with each other
FSD
too
over the
much.
years.
Let's not get into like bickering with each other too much. Let's try and kind of stay on topic. So, I mean, FSD's driven 4 billion miles, right? So, in the United States there's a fatality roughly every 100 million miles. If humans had driven those 4 billion miles themselves, you'd expect there to be at least 40 fatalities, at least 40 people dead. The best estimate I've seen is it's actually around 2. So, you can see really 95% of the expected fatalities did not happen. So I would argue actually that they've saved quite a number of lives, and actually more lives than Waymo, because Waymo's only driven about 50 million miles, right? So if you had human driven miles, 50 million miles, that's less than the average number of miles for per fatality. So they probably wouldn't have seen one anyway. I think what a lot of people are missing, and we've heard this argument from years from the LiDAR companies and stuff like that, that it's impossible to be safe without LiDAR. But I think what we've found over time is that what actually matters is intelligence, right? So you can have great sensors or okay sensors or mediocre sensors, but the intelligence can really, make a lot of difference. So if you're training on a large scale data set, if the data set's much larger because of cameras, you may learn things about how humans behave or how cars behave or certain, sort of long tail behaviors that are pretty useful. Because you don't just want to look at where all the objects are right now, you want to predict where they're going to be a few seconds in the future. So you can make your choices around that. So I think what's kind of counterintuitive and what a lot of people are going to be surprised by is that the pure AI solution actually has the potential to be safer, even without a lot of the sensor retrofits that you see. Lincoln?
So, Magic, when you talk about, the LiDAR argument, where do you keep your LiDAR? If you can't be safe driving without LiDAR, where is it? Do you keep it up your ass? Like, where is it? Is it on your back? Like, think about it. You drive and you can drive safe. So
That's not the argument. That's not the argument. The argument
you
is
said
what's
you can't
safer.
drive safe without
What's
LiDAR.
safer,
That's all.
vision only or lidar? Lidar is. Anybody that says anything different is delusional and stupid. That's it. Lidar's safer. It doesn't matter
Uh,
if it's whatever. It's safer. Okay.
What technical
LiDAR's not
background do you have that
safer.
gives you that confidence level? I would love to hear your technical background on this, please. Please explain.
Yeah,
Explain
you're
why
just saying
vision
it.
only is safer than lidar.
I
What
I
about
can
you doing,
explain it.
genius?
I
Huh?
can explain it to you,
Because
Magic, if
God
you want to
explained it a
hear.
billion years ago. Jesus Christ.
No, Magic, if you think about the neurons that are required to process the input from LiDAR and vision, reallocating those neurons to vision only or to LiDAR and vision is what you're debating, right? So it's not that LiDAR is free. LiDAR takes away cognitive capacity from the machine, which means you either got to sacrifice reaction time or you got to sacrifice safety in another format. I did a post on this a while ago. I'll tag you in it. You're giving up reaction time. Everybody knows reaction time is what's the most important thing. With LiDAR, the best you can do is get close to an F1 driver. Without LiDAR, you could be 10 times safer.
Yeah, I
The
think
fact
the
that
most important
oh,
thing for safety is really, do you have it, right? So let's say I'm about to drive and there's a kid who's going to run into the street and I'm going to hit that kid, if all else being considered, if it's a human driven car. Now, you can argue about LiDAR versus vision, but the reality is both LiDAR and vision systems can handle most of the common crashes. I mean, even a simple automatic emergency braking can handle most of these crashes. So, in many cases, the operative question becomes, what do I have with me? What's actually running on my car? And having nothing because you say, well, you need to have LiDAR on this car to have this type of AI versus putting vision systems on cars where they can be useful and where they can start preventing accidents right away. That's really the difference. I mean, yes, if cost and everything else was no concern, if we could put LiDAR into every car in the world just as easily as we could build a vision system, then maybe that would be less of a consideration. But vision is the system that's actually running on millions of cars, not just Tesla cars, cars from other brands. And that scalability is really what makes a difference. If you're not running on a car because you can't be for cost reasons, you're not going to prevent any accidents.
I have a question for Magic, really just a simple question. So we saw Teslas using, the LiDAR on top of cars in Austin. Do you think Tesla is mapping out Austin? I just want to like a yes or no.
I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing.
I do because an engineer at SRI International, which is the lab in Silicon Valley that's invented a lot of things, tells me that by doing a very high resolution scan, you can make your maps much more accurate. And that's what they did. They laid down a very high resolution scan of key routes through the city to make sure that the Google map that you see in a Tesla is aligned properly to the real world. And Elon's talked about real world AI for a long time. To go back some of this technical. I interviewed the founder
Robert, you're
of
breaking up a little bit.
Innovation.
Sorry. Um, yeah, so I don't want to get into like a lidar versus vision debate. We've beat the dead horse on that for years now while we waited for this robo taxi to exist. Now the time to debate is over and the time to watch has begun. Is it actually safer? Can it actually not crash? How does it actually do in the real world? All our arguments, they're meaningless now. Now we watch what's happening in reality. And, you know, reality is often stranger than anyone thinks. So we're going to just sort of go around. If anyone has any questions or comments, we got Sawyer here maybe for a little bit while we have him. If you want to ask him a question, Alexander, Lincoln, JC, others, if you have any questions or comments just on this news of a potential June 12th date, we'll just go around and do that. And then we'll close out the space. So let's go to Robert. He's got his hand up.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, for those who are heavy FSD users, would you feel comfortable using the driverless rides in Austin on 12 June, given that Tesla has only started the driverless testing on public roads today, which is only about 2 weeks from the release? I am a heavy FSD user, absolutely love it. It's fantastic. It's truly changed the way I drive, my driving experience. It's just not perfect. Occasionally, it'll still make a mistake, some of which could be catastrophic. And we can all say that FSD is safer than a human driver with X number of accidents per X number of miles driven. But all it takes is that one small mistake, potentially in a situation that, all this FSD testing has not seen yet, which could lead to a significant life changing accident. So, would you feel comfortable using the driverless system in 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would definitely feel comfortable using it. And, they've just started doing driverless testing now, but they've been testing with a human behind the wheel. And that's pretty much the same software, right? The fact that the human is behind the wheel doesn't really make any difference. They've already been seeing all these issues and now they feel confident enough to take the driver out. So